our last two applications, the consumer's surplus and the producer's surplus. Turns out these are very, very similar. You go about them in a similar way. So we're going to see both formulas and definitions back to back. Then we'll do an example. Okay, so starting with the consumer's surplus, what is this all about? Let's look at the formula first. Then I'll tell you what its meaning is. Like, what is it telling us? Okay, so CS, consumer surplus, equals the integral from 0 to x bar. That's kind of strange. 0 to x bar of dx minus p bar. Again, weird. Dx. Okay, so what are these things? Let me talk about the d of x first. Then I'll talk about the x bar, p bar. So d of x is the price demand equation. A lot of times we see the price demand equation written as P equals, like the price equals something involving X. So if you know what the demand is, that equation tells you how to set the price. Or you could even work it backwards if you wanted. So that's what the D of X is, the price demand equation. How are the price you're putting on your item, how's that connected to its demand? Okay, obviously price goes up, demand goes down, right? Okay. What is the X bar P bar? So X bar P bar is a point on that equation. Okay, we label them as X bar P bar so we don't confuse the variable X with a particular X value. Okay, kind of like in the future value we had capital T and little t. So here, like the X bar is almost working like the capital T. It's a fixed number. We don't want to confuse it with the variable X. And it'll be a fixed number in our problem. The P bar is a fixed price, right? So we've got a fixed demand and it's fixed price. So those are going to be numbers that we can plug in to these two locations. Okay. And obviously that's going to have to be provided for us somehow in the problem, what numbers those are, right? So what does this do exactly? So this finds the total savings to consumers who are willing to pay more than P bar for the product. Okay, so there's a product out there and they're charging a certain amount. And maybe you're a consumer, right? You see that product and you see the price on it and you think, hey, I'm willing to pay that price. And you kind of like, you're thinking the truth is I'd be willing to pay more than what they're asking. They happen to be asking less than what I would actually be willing to pay for this. And I'm not going to say anything about it, obviously. But, you know, maybe they're charging $20 and I'd be willing to pay $50. You know, I don't know, just depending on what it is, if it really came down to it. So because they're charging less than what I'm willing to pay, then there's a savings to the consumers. So what's the total savings if you look at the demand for that product, right? So the demand tells us how many people are willing to buy it over a certain time period, right? So what's the total savings that the consumers made that they didn't have to spend, that they actually would have been willing to? Okay. You notice there's a subtraction happening, right? That's like there's a difference, right? The price that it's set at minus the price that they're actually charging. So we can see, okay, there's a difference there. All right, very good. We're not going to do an example yet. First, we're going to look at the producer's surplus. So it's like the flip side. Instead of consumers saving money, we're going to look at producers making money, which is nice if you're on the other side, right? So the producer's surplus, similar equation. You notice there's like a reversal here. So PS equals still an integral from 0 to x bar, but now we put the p hat first, and second is S of x. So what is S of x? Now we have a price supply equation. No longer price demand, now it's price supply. So, right, what price should we set given what we're able to supply, or what we're going to charge for supplying? Okay, because we're the producer, right? We're the ones selling it. Okay, again, the x bar p bar is a point on that equation. These are fixed numbers, numbers that we'll be able to get from the problem. Okay, and you notice the difference is the other way because now what's happening? This finds the total gain to producers who are willing to supply units at a lower price than P bar. So now we're thinking of P bar as like from the producer side of things. That's how much they're making, right? But it's reversed. So they're actually willing to charge you less than P bar, right? If they had to. So now it's right. They're going to charge you $50 for that product when the truth is they'd even be willing to lower that to, like the $20 or whatever the numbers I used earlier, right? We would sell it to you for 20, but we know a lot of people are going to buy it for 50. So we're just going to set it at 50 and we're going to get a producer surplus. Okay. So what's their total gain, right? Because now demand is going to drop, obviously. And supply, whatever happens, so that difference changes. The demand drops, so the supply would drop as well because they wouldn't have to create so many of these things. So if they jack up the price, then the supply, okay, well, right. So that difference is going to increase, and they're going to make more of a gain. All right, let's get to it. You guys get it. We're just going to do an example of the producer surplus because the consumer surplus, it's going to work exactly the same way, just with a slightly different formula. So, okay, here we go. Oh, all right. Find the producer's surplus at this price, P bar equals 60. So they're charging $60 for their product. Find the producer's surplus at P bar equals 60 for this price supply equation, P equals 12 plus 0.03x. We got our price, and x represents our supply. Okay. Okay. So we can see as supply goes up, right? Price goes up. Okay, interesting. All right, anyway, a little bit. So let's take a look here. So they gave us, can I keep this on the screen? Maybe, okay. So they gave us P bar. That's great. We know what to plug in for P bar. Here's the problem though. And I know what the S of x is. That's our function, 12 plus 0.03x. So I know what to plug in there. But here's the problem. Like, what's x bar? What do I put in for the upper value of my limit? They didn't mention that. They just gave me P bar. Okay, the key there is we'll be able to find it ourselves because x bar P bar is a point on this function. So if all they tell us is P bar, that's okay. We can plug it in and we can figure out what x bar is. So here we go. So now we can slide it up. To find x bar for P bar equals 60, plug in the 60 to the P and figure out the x. So when we plug in 60 equals 12 plus 0.03x, let's just call it x bar at this point. And we'll solve for it. So, okay, subtracting, we get 48 equals 0.03 x bar, dividing by 0.03. Turns out that is 1600 equals x bar. So that's our supply if we're going to charge $60. Okay. So now we have enough information and we can go for it. The producer's surplus integral from 0 to 1600, because that's what we just found. There's our P bar, 60 minus, and there's our S of x, 12 plus 0.03x. Okay, this is key. Because we're subtracting, be sure to put parentheses here because this negative sign has to distribute. Easy to miss. So when we simplify here, 60 minus 12, well, that's 48, minus 0.03x. Okay. Now we've cleaned it up pretty nice. Let's go ahead and take an antiderivative. Well, that's 48x. Here we can divide by 2 and x squared, right? 0.015x squared, going from 0 to 1600. And I think we're going to finish it right over here. So plugging in the 1600 to both of those, I got in the times 48, 76,800. Plugging it into this x squared and multiplying, I got 38,400. And we'll subtract, and clearly plugging in the 0 to both just gives us 0. And so subtract, and well, it so happens that yeah, it worked out kind of nice. Like that was exactly double. So okay, the producer's surplus in this case, $38,400. That people paid over what they were actually willing to charge. Very good, very good. That's it. That's our section. Check out the homework.